T-800 has a permanently flaccid dick.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Alien Familiar RPG Podcast. I am Clayton.
Kyle Perkins.
Hayley.
KD.
Before we get started, you can find show notes and more at alienfamiliar.com. You can email us at alienfamiliarmedia@gmail.com. We are on Facebook at facebook.com/alienfamiliar. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/alienfamiliarmedia. So if you want to help us out with hosting costs, any help would be greatly appreciated. Today we are going to be talking about, in general, robot uprisings, but more specifically, we are going to be talking about how to translate the Terminator, franchise into a role-playing game. And in prep for this, we just got done watching Terminator 2, the awesome movie that it is. So it's fresh on our minds, all the robot uprisings and whether or not the T-800 has a penis or not. we have from watching the evidence of Terminator 2, it is clear that it does.
Absolutely. Which is honestly the most important part. World building of any campaign.
World building, yep. And I gotta say, in all seriousness, Terminator 2 does some of... Well, I'll say Terminator 1 and 2 does some of the best world building for this robotic, this AI uprising trope that I can think of.
Yeah.
You've got... Was it Fritz Lang's Metropolis? Mm-hmm. There's sentient robots that...
iRobot, Will Smith.
True, that was after. But
you meant before.
Oh, no, sorry, yeah. No, I'm trying to think of things that around 92, when T2 came out, would have been out there in the public consciousness about killer robots, you know?
War
Games, good one.
Small World?
Small World.
Westworld?
No.
Well, Westworld is a good example, but...
Little Wonder, that's what I'm trying to think of.
Little Wonder?
Yeah, it was a TV show in the 80s about a guy who builds a robotic daughter.
Huh.
Oh my god, I remember that!
That's weird.
And then there's also Data on Star Trek, who existed.
Was Westworld the one with Peter Fonda?
Yul Brynner and maybe Peter Fonda, I don't remember.
Because there was another one about killer robots, I think that was a 70s movie, or early 80s?
Westworld came out in the 70s.
Okay, that's maybe what I'm thinking of then.
Westworld, it's showing me the new one, which, by the way, is pretty good. I've only seen a couple episodes of it. The new Westworld series, I guess it's not new now, but it's newer than 1973. It's pretty darn solid. 1973 Westworld had Yul Brynner as the evil gunslinger robot, James Brolin, Richard Benjamin, and a bunch more people. Alan Oppenheimer.
What?
No, Majel Barrett was in it. Oh, another famous computer.
She was just a voice, though. She didn't actually have any agency.
Well, anyway, I think 73's Westworld might be the only other example I can think of off the top of my head that was as kind of big, where you have in the public eye that killer robot idea. And Terminator 1 and 2, great job of doing it. I maintain after this rewatch today, T2, one of my favorite movies ever, and I think one of the greatest movies ever made. I'm going to say it right now, and you can't disagree with me.
I agree with you.
No takebacks.
I am not disagreeing with you. I do agree with you. Future World was a 1976 film starring Peter Fonda.
But that was a sequel to Westworld.
That was a sequel to Westworld.
Whoa.
Okay, I've actually never seen the original Westworld. I've only ever seen Future World.
Wow. I've never even heard of Future World.
Which is super strange.
Huh.
Anyway, I just wanted to clear that up so people don't think that I think Peter Fonda, legendary actor, is in Westworld.
Well, the idea of an artificial intelligence becoming self-aware, deciding that humanity is a hindrance or an enemy, and coming alive, taking over, taking advantage of our existing infrastructure, dropping nukes. I think that it is a thing that has maybe, I would say definitely since earlier, because war games, you have that going on. But is it safe to say since the 70s it's been something in the public consciousness?
Yeah.
Maybe 60s, because there were definitely some evil computer Star Trek episodes.
Yeah.
So I guess since the nuke, and since the computer, we've had that idea in our mind, and it's a fun setting. I love the setting. I love the idea of running a game in that setting.
Because robots have definitely predated that in fiction, but I feel as though people weren't seeing the negative aspects of that until, I think you're right about the development of the nuke, but also until how integrated they sort of started to become.
Yeah,
you know?
because before a certain technological point, it's not really easy to foresee how robots might impact our lives. The only, the origin of the word robot is, just worker, and it was originally, these things are just going to be servants.
Yeah, Lost in Space, you have Danger Will Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure he's just friendly, helping robot man, You don't have any, suspect shit there. And then at some point, all of a sudden, we're like, yikes, robots! I wonder if and now we're just tangenting, and that's fine. The 60s had that huge kick in horror films, of a lot of B-movies, about, giant insects and giant animals and stuff, and I wonder, and a lot of it's very pulpy. I wonder if, and aliens too, invaders from outer space. I wonder if robots, it's strange to me robots didn't really get a kick there, at least that I know of. And instead we only started getting them in the 70s with stuff like Westworld. So I'm not sure what's going on there.
I don't know.
Well, as far as I'm aware, with the exception of Metropolis, most of the robots are definitely kind of human-shaped, vaguely, but there's no way it would pass as a human. I think that's something that comes later, starting with probably around the time of Westworld was the first time we really saw robots that were physically indistinguishable from humans.
Because I'm thinking on it, and The Day the Earth Stood Still had robots that were invading, but they were alien robots.
Oh gosh,
No,
that's a great movie.
Yeah. Well, they weren't invading; they were coming to warn Earth, and if Earth didn't shape up, they were going to destroy it.
Yeah. We took Nick 2, or was that the human?
No, it was Nick 2 because it's Cloud Tuberata, Nick Doperende, Nick Tar.
All right.
Wow.
Nerd alert. We started firing first and pissed off the robot and its creator, and so yeah. I was gonna say, and I'm honestly gonna be totally honest with y'all. I haven't seen Metropolis. I know a little bit about the plot. I know that at one point there's a robot that is sent to put down a workers' strike or something, and it's supposed to look human. I don't remember. But you think of that iconic Metropolis robot, it's that humanoid but doesn't pass for human. And yeah, Westworld, it's Yul Brynner. He moves a little slowly and robotically, but that's just Yul Brynner.
Were there any Twilight Zone episodes you guys remember that had robots?
Yeah.
They were not with robots that looked indistinguishable from humans, but there were some episodes with robots as servants.
Mm-hmm. And the plot was they rebelled or something similar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, essentially.
I'm sure with just the usual Twilight Zone flair.
Mm-hmm. Interesting that it seems to me some of the more famous examples anyway from the 80s of friendly robots. Well, no, you've got Lost in Space, Danger Will Robinson. But still, it fits what I'm about to say. The friendly robots in the 40 years leading up to the new millennium, they never look humanoid.
Mm-hmm.
Data is a notable exception. That would have been the late 80s starting out. But they number 5 from Short Circuit. Or no.
Yes,
right?
You're
yeah,
right.
Yeah. And
R2-D2 and 3PO.
Oh yeah,
3PO.
yeah. I mean, so 3PO is humanoid, but doesn't look
sure.
Like
you're not going to be you're not going to be walking down the street and be like, "Ah, yes, Mr. Anthony Daniels, I see you."
What were you saying, Hayley?
You also have Francesca from Mad Mad Monster Party, although that is claymation. It's a big reveal that she's a robot in the end. Spoiler alert.
We can't say that after you spoil something. That's not how it works.
When did that come out?
Mad Mad Monster Party, I believe, came out in the 60s. It was predating Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Well, not a lot of people know about it, and it's an absolute fucking crime. It's really good. B. Arthur's in it. She sings. I think she plays, Frankenstein's wife, and she's constantly trying to murder him because he's an asswipe. It's great.
Interesting.
It's really good.
You did just spoil it, though, so,
well,
can't watch it now.
It's by the same people who made Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. It's fucking great. But robots, I think the more human it is, or human-looking it is, I feel like it's more interesting to make them more detached from humans. And then things that are just like, for example, like Hal. He's just a blinking light. Or things that look like trash cans on rovers. Things that do not look human. It's so much easier to dissociate them with emotion that you could just stop them, force them to be evil. But when you put them in a humanoid form, it complicates things. Just because humans get so attached to anything that might like some sort of recognition of human features. I mean, there's a thing, I don't know the name of it, but like when you look at an object and it has the familiarities of a human face and humans attach themselves to it.
No, it's
you know what I mean?
Pareidolia?
Maybe? Yeah. So like, you know how your bathtubs, they'll sometimes like the hot and cold shower and then the little nozzle kind of looks like a face? You get like attached to it.
That's such an example. Okay.
But like you can see faces and things.
Pareidolia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The tendency to interpret a vague stimulus as something known to the observer. It doesn't always mean that you see something and think face.
There is a specific subcategory of that's specific to faces.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. It complicates things so much.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you bring up a great point. I think we should, before we get any more into this, really quick just break down a little bit of our own feelings on AI versus robot. Because I had completely forgotten about 2001.
Mm-hmm. But
in a lot of cases, I feel like Hal is he's artificial intelligence. Like, technically he's a robot, sure. But like, if you think about it, let's think about iRobot too, right? In that film, I feel like you have the AI stereotype and you have the robot stereotype. Because, spoiler alert, the whole thing is being manipulated by Vicky, this AI that controls the robots and a lot of stuff around the city.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a TV show, not a film.
I don't know what the basis was, but I'm talking about the Will Smith film.
Oh.
In the early
Will Smith actually wrote iRobot. That's what we call it, Smith's 3 Laws of Robotics.
So, I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, is there a hard cutoff between AI and robot? Are they the same thing? When you're thinking about it in a fiction sense for an RPG, do you separate the two?
I think I would. Like, for example, the Iron Giant, he's a robot, he's not artificial intelligence, even though he is intelligent and he can make his own decisions and has his own free will. I think artificial intelligence is specifically an upgraded technology that we have created to sustain itself, where a robot has its services, but it can evolve into its own thing.
It seems like in fiction, and this is not a hard and fast rule, but we'll go ahead and say it anyway, all robots are artificial intelligence. Okay. Not all artificial intelligences are robots.
Yes.
Oh.
Interesting.
The AI is the system. Whether it is the system that runs an individual piece of machinery, or whether it is the system that runs that is Skynet, that runs everything.
I was going to say, just because in Terminator, Skynet is never really given form.
Right.
Ooh, do they do that in the later movies?
They might do it in Salvation.
I don't remember.
Most of me today has just been...
In Salvation, it has a power source.
Okay.
Mm.
Most of me today, to the audience, as we've been watching things, has just been like, oh, they might do that in Salvation. Because I remember very little about that film.
Read Only Memories 2064 has a great distinction between robots and AI. I can't believe I forgot about that. It's one of the best fucking video games out there. And there's all these different robots. Robots are completely put out through society. They have uses. Everything's built off of robotic technology, but there's only one AI. And he's trying to give AI sentience to all the other robots to free them.
So, yeah, that is a trope definitely presented in a lot of fiction anyway, is you have a robot that has limited intelligence, and if you look at the Mass Effect series, they give that a different name. I think Mass Effect coined this virtual intelligence, a VI, versus artificial intelligence, an AI. I don't really like that name, but it worked in Mass Effect because the idea is that a VI is really just a complex program that does not learn. It does not do anything more than what it's told, and it's meant to, like, haptically or vocally interface with people. Whereas an artificial intelligence is self-aware, it can learn, yada, yada, yada.
I think that's dope.
In real life, the distinction between artificial intelligence is that it is a self-learning mechanism. Like, you don't have AI. That's why we're striving for a version of AI, because we really haven't been able to prove that we can make something that can learn and teach itself on its own.
What about the robots that learned about racism on Twitter?
It's an example of a learning robot, definitely, and what they're doing is analyzing massive amounts of tweets, and they're seeing, like, a racist tweet, especially by someone famous, might get a lot of responses, negative and some unfortunately positive by a bunch of other fucking trolls and shitheads. And it sees, okay, so this racist tweet, and I'm extrapolating here, but this racist tweet got a lot of responses and activity. So if it depends on what its mission was, I don't remember, but if it's learning in an attempt to make its own tweets that gain, not well received, mind you, but that simply gain retweets and likes and attention, I'm guessing that it saw racist and other, like, highly controversial things get that attention, and so it started to give out controversial things. That's my total guess. I do not know how that actually happened, but seems to make sense in my brain.
I know what's stupid about it because I thought it was super fascinating. Basically, the robot entered this world, a beautiful nubile baby, just real excited to explore, and was like, "Hi Twitter, I'm here, send me your responses and interact with me." And a bunch of hackers overloaded it with a bunch of just, like, really awful content from the internet, and it learned through that and then started...
I don't know if I'd call them hackers.
They went
Trolls,
in,
maybe.
Yeah, they went in with the specific intent to overload it with content.
Oh, and so they just force-fed it a bunch of shitty content.
Yeah, and then it was like, kill all Jews. And I was like, okay, robot, time to go away.
So that's even less advanced than what I was describing. And this is something I love to think about when you're running games with robots and AI that learn, is think about that stimulus, in which case a bunch of shitty trolls force-fed this poor thing, racist content, right? And so then it just started to repeat after mommy and daddy.
Yeah.
But hang on. Before we get too far down the rabbit hole, I wanted to say that it was super cool that you, Kyle, just brought up, AI versus robot, and we just talked about that a lot. But Hayley, you also mentioned, this idea that the more human the robot is, the more interesting it is to make it evil. Yeah. And the less human it is, the more interesting it is to make it human. And good, as it were. And I think that's a really interesting concept. I had not thought about that. That's pretty cool. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, it's like ascribing human qualities to something inherently not human. It makes it easier to understand and empathize with. But if you're looking at a robot that's already... just iRobot, the robot film of our generation. It's why Sonny works so well in that film, is because he's vaguely human-like, but, like, I don't know if you guys remember the type of robots in that film, but they're these white ceramic sort of shell shapes. And, like, it makes it, even though he is vaguely human-like, right, it's easier for you to project onto that. But if you're, like, if it's like Westworld or something, like, you're already, that person is a human being to you. And so that act of ascribing and giving the human characteristics, like, you don't have to do that because you already have that there, if that makes sense.
The new Westworld series does such a good job at having and they're human actors, but...
Are you sure?
Oh.
No one knows.
I think they are. Having them do things that are deeply unsettling, because we know how a human with emotions... I know this is not a favorite topic of yours, Kyle, but it's in the same way that a sociopathic serial killer type villain is creepy, because it's a human, looks like a human, doesn't have emotions, does things to hurt, and doesn't affect it when it hurts someone. Like, that stuff's real creepy.
It's like the ending scene of Psycho, where, what's his name, is sitting in the...
Norman Bates.
I forget the actor, though.
I don't know.
Norman Bates.
Perkins.
Kyle Perkins.
Anyway,
Anthony
Perkins.
Yeah, exactly. And he's sitting in the police room and he's having that internal monologue and he looks very, like, harmless. I think that's a good point. I think that, like, that is the scary part, is it, you know, whether it's a sociopathic serial killer or a robot that kills people, like, there's kind of a weird equivalence there that's what makes that scary. And, like, to bring it all back around, the original Terminator, you know, a thriller film, kind of a horror film in a way, Arnold is scary in that movie, which is not something I think as you know, Hayley, I know you mentioned before the podcast started you haven't seen that many Arnold films.
Nope. I've seen Twins, and I have seen Terminator 2 now. That is it.
Prior to watching T2 Judgment Day, Hayley had only ever seen Twins, where Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito are twins.
They're just so identical.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that movie.
But I think it would be safe to assume, for the three of us that have watched Arnold films, Hayley,
what?
That, like, no, usually he's not someone that springs to mind when you think, like, a scary actor or, like, a horror actor.
He's usually heroic, typically.
Like an action hero.
And sometimes, in more recent, you know, eras, especially here, he's funny. Like, he's...
Yeah, grouchy old man. Yeah. And so, I think that's pretty interesting, because he's just this unthinking, unceasing, like, emotionless killer.
Well, what is he again, Clayton?
Yeah, Clayton's got the tagline nailed down.
Well, I was put me on the spot and I can't remember.
Oh no.
He doesn't feel pity. He doesn't feel remorse. He doesn't feel fear. He absolutely will not stop until you are dead.
We gave Hayley a 2-minute recap of Terminator 1 since she hadn't seen it, and Clayton just flawlessly delivers that when you asked a question, Hayley, about the Terminator. Is perfect. It was good.
Well, I want to go back to something you said, because well, yes, the unthinking, uncaring, without mercy machine is scary. I personally do not find it interesting. And I enjoyed T2 because that's not entirely what I got from the film. Arnold's character evolved, and he learned, and you got attached to him and his relationship with the boy and Sarah Connor. And whenever I think of Terminator games, specifically all of us in a room, we played in one. I only played one session, and it was when I was first starting playing games with you guys, so I made terrible decisions.
Oh, can we talk about the biggest decision that you made?
Listen, I shoot him in the arm.
So you say, because you wanted to do something, and we had, like, it was a military game, so there was, like, a hierarchy. And I think I was the colonel, and Kyle was were you, like, the non-com, or the lieutenant, or something?
I
think you might have been the non-com.
I was someone with some authority, but I wasn't the lead officer.
And you wanted to do something. I think you wanted to, like, run out and shoot a robot while we were, like, holding our fire. And you go, like, I'm gonna do it. And Kyle's character, like, goes to grab you and is like, that's an order, don't do it. And you just go, I shoot him.
Yeah.
And we're all like, what?
Yeah, and the commanding officer, just go, you do what? And then you kind of, like, wave your hand at me and go, in the arm!
I was new. I was learning.
You're
like
new
a
in
robot. I'm new in town. I've grown a lot since then, but also I didn't understand the world we were in. I've never seen Terminator. I didn't know it was a Terminator game until we were about to watch T2, and we said we all played in that Terminator game. I was like, no, I didn't. Did I? I literally didn't remember. I walked into this game 2 sessions in, didn't know what was going on. I was like, I'm gonna do a thing. Because that's what RPGs are. You get to do whatever you want.
So, I think that's interesting. Because you didn't really, I mean, well, that was a dumb decision, Hayley. Really
it was really dumb.
But, like, you didn't have context for, like, what the tone of a Terminator
I didn't
is,
at all.
You know?
But now, like, looking back at it, I would have done it all again. No, I would not have. So I want to get back to my original point, which is, I personally not find stories where the bad guy is an unkilling, unthinking machine, because then, to me, it's all just a bunch of number crunching and combat. And while I understand that a lot of people find that interesting, it's not my specific cup of tea. I always like finding different ways to deal with someone than I shoot him in the face. Or in the arm, in my case.
Oh, it's funny that you don't like unthinking machines, and then all of a sudden, I shoot him. Oh, what Terminator? In the arm.
Sorry, in the kneecap. just going around and kneecapping everybody.
And then did you, completely unaware that you were referencing the movie, turn to him and say, he'll live, after you shot him?
Did I?
I don't know, I'm asking.
I'm pretty sure. I was like, he'll live. That sounds like something I 100% would say.
So what would you guys say are the essential elements for running like a Terminator style of game?
Well, you 100% need to have some sort of AI, or you need some sort of mechanical bad guy element, or else it's not even remotely in the Terminator universe.
So, like, you were talking about, you're not interested by some enemy that is completely unfeeling, completely emotionless, something that is monolithically there to oppose you guys as player characters, or just as humanity in general, which is kind of the basis of Robot Uprising style of games.
What I would say is I'm not interested in, let's say, in any TT games. I personally would not be interested in a game where it's in the future, the apocalypse has happened, we're playing a military group and we are fighting these computers that are already established. We know that they do not feel, they do not think, they're completely more advanced than us, and we're completely outnumbered. I am not interested in that game. I'm interested in a game where it's 1990, we're a group of people who know the apocalypse is happening, it hasn't happened yet. We are trying to either talk to people who are going to create this technology, there's prototypes of that technology, maybe something came back from the future, and we have, one, a chance, and two, other options than this is just an unthinking, unkilling machine. Specifically, like, if there's only, like, one or two of them, that's fine. That's an obstacle. That's a session or 2 sessions. Not an entire game where we only have one option, and that is to fight. I think that's boring game, when you only can do one thing. In my opinion, that is. You are more than welcome to love and enjoy and run that kind of stuff. Just not my cup of tea.
But, like, referencing the very first actual play series that we did, which we used Jordan's Apocalyptia game and set it 10 years in the future for a Robot Uprising. In that, you guys literally were against a monolithic entity in the AI that was attempting to wipe you guys out because some of you had special knowledge that it needed to either acquire for itself or eliminate from the world so that you guys couldn't essentially hurt it.
Yeah.
The main story from that pulled mostly from your own interactions with each other, and that's something that's present in just about every apocalyptic style scenario. Is the threat is not this other that is unstopping coming after us, which is also what zombies are about.
It's also about, don't like zombies.
It's about the group, how the group interacts with each other, the group's story of how they come together or they fracture when they are attempting to achieve their goals.
Yeah, I agree with Clayton. I think like the happy medium there is if you wanted to run a game similar to the one that you were, not the actual play, but the one where you threatened to shoot Kyle in the arm.
Yeah.
I wish there was an actual name for that, but if you want to run in that setting where your resistance, sort of like in the future of the Terminator universe, right? And you're fighting against the machine. A lot of the, like, roleplay and, like, interpersonal conflict doesn't come from your conflict with the machine, but from, like, as much as we meme about it, that interaction you had with Kyle was an example of how that game should be played out in a way. Of, like, a unit's on a mission, but for whatever reason, there's either a tactical disagreement or, like, a moral disagreement, and the unit fractures or splits or has an argument about that, and that's where the conflict comes from, not versing, this faceless machine. And if you're running a longer game, maybe you have some issues with the resistance. Like, there's factionalism. Like, there's one thing we all know about human beings, is that it's very rare, even when the chips are down, that we all, like, are on the same page.
I don't think I can handle another factions game.
Kyle, I got it. I know what's happening. Hayley can't out-charisma an artificial intelligence or a monolithic robot enemy. So that's why you wouldn't want to play in that game. You can't sleep with a zombie. So
but your girl's
that's why you don't like zombies.
Your girl's gonna try. But yeah, that's 100% it. You can't reason with a robot. You can't reason with a zombie. You can try and fuck a werewolf. You can. You can try and talk a vampire out of biting you. You can communicate with ghosts. You can fight evil wizards and discuss them with them. Fucking Magneto you can have reasonable disagreements with.
What you can do to machines is out-human them, and outsmart them, and confuse them, and outwit them, and learn how they operate. And as a DM, running the monolithic, unfeeling style AI robot uprising enemy, you like, and I find this very fun, but I think something that pretty much has to be done to do an AI uprising game justice is come up with a very strict set of rules by which your artificial intelligence operates, and those rules can change and grow if it's a learning machine, but it needs to have a set of rules by which it operates. It needs to have patterns that it follows. Abilities and things need to be very predictable at first or understandable, and then as it grows and evolves, you can't just have it start doing things arbitrarily. It needs to have some kind of twisted logic, rationality behind it. And as a player in those games, I like outwitting the machines, and I like you can't sleep with the robot. Well,
Arnold Chronicles.
T-800 Dick can't get hard. We've already determined this. So, you can't charisma a robot, but you can, use your humanity to your advantage. You know, like a robot might not think it logical to stop and help a wounded human to live. Like it's on it. The human has been, hurt in the head, bleeding out, and it needs medical attention to survive. I keep saying it. The human needs medical attention to survive. The robot might think, oh, well, this is silly, like this human is basically worthless now. But the human team will revive their friend, and that friend will continue to grow, and that friend has gained knowledge against how to fight that robot now. It's kind of a bad example, but like...
No, I understand, and I feel like it certainly helped me understand how it can be enjoyed. And I 100% see that side. I don't know if I had a choice of games, if I would volunteer to play that game. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, no, you can prefer to play whatever games you want, but I'm just explaining why I like those games.
Yeah, no, but that's also something very interesting that you brought up about the rules of robotics. Robots have strict, almost like paladins, they have strict, not moral codes, but physical codes that they have to adhere to. And I think that's 100% necessary for running a Terminator game. You need to establish the rules of your world, establish the rules of your robots, because that's how you defeat them. And I couldn't see myself running it because I don't know how to outsmart my players already. My players are super smart. Well, or I'm really dumb.
No, that's great that you are going to... You're dependent upon your players to outsmart the things that you've set up.
Yeah.
I think one of the most critical elements of actually fighting against an AI that the game master needs to put in the game is establishing what the AI's resources are. Whether it's known to the player characters or not at the start of the campaign, ideally it wouldn't be known, but that way you as the game master know how much you can throw at the players, and it's something that as the story develops, the players can learn exploits of the AI, just like in a video game, to find out, okay, what's the AI going to be doing in this situation if we do this thing, so that they can exploit the pre-programmed ways that the AI acts. And also, I know in one of the Terminator movies that we're not talking about because it sucks, one of the plot points is that that Skynet has a manufacturing place, and that is where the vast majority of the resources of Skynet are. And so they have to just basically destroy those resources in order to try to defeat the AI. And that's something that I see is if you're playing a game where your goal is to defeat the AI, not just human survival, that needs to be present so that the players have something to work toward, but also so that you as a game master have a limitation on the things that you can throw at the players, because otherwise, why wouldn't the AI just steamroll over the players?
One of my favorite tropes that I would hope would be in the game, but also in fiction, when it comes to AIs and robot rebellions is the unpredictability of humans and the AI not being able to handle it.
Yeah.
Especially, I think the top tier in terms of favorites for me is when the AI tries to like calculate out a human emotion, like compassion or like morality, and like it'll like make like you'll have an arrogant assumption by the AI character saying something like, "Ah, yes, I knew you'd stop to pick up your companion." Like, what a weakness of humanity! But like somehow that calculation and that like show of human emotion that the AI can't understand and can't number crunch is what gets them in the end. And I think that that's an important part of running a Robot Rebellion game, is that you need, like, there's human emotions and morality and all these kind of idealistic concepts that can be played out with your characters to ultimately, hopefully, triumph in the end. And that's where a lot of, like, the AI game's not about the robots, it's about the humans. And you, Hayley, noted that about T2 when we were watching it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a lot less about, like, you know, Arnold's character. I mean, maybe that's a bad example because he does have some character growth, but, like, it's a lot less about the T-1000 than it is John Connor and Sarah Connor and, you know, even Miles Dyson.
Quick side note, Miles Dyson is a great character, and we should have had a spin-off all about him and his research. It would have been great. Make it happen.
Yeah, to all the Warner Brothers.
If you were listening.
To Mr. James Cameron. Is it Warner Brothers? I don't even know.
I don't know. It was Canon, but Canon is
not
more.
around. Yeah.
Yeah, Joe Morton is the actor who plays Miles Dyson, and I had forgotten how awesome of a character he is in that. Through and through, all the way, like a good man who, as soon as he learns that his research is going to be used to kill 3 billion people and nearly destroy the world, if not doom it, he's just like, all right, yeah, fuck this thing that's going to change the world that I've been working on for years. Yeah, let's blow it up. And then, like, I love that scene. Spoiler alert. Like seriously, like, if you haven't seen Terminator 2,
sorry,
stop listening right fucking now. Turn off your shit. Well, not yet. Actually, wait. Hear me out. Go buy the DVD. Go to Walmart. Dig through the $5 bin. Buy the DVD. Don't stream it. Come back to your home. Turn off all the lights. Turn on one mood light. Make it red. Pop in that DVD into your player. Turn on your television. Turn the volume crank to the max.
Say, Alexa, turn on mood lighting.
Turn on the, yeah.
Then the mood lighting comes on.
And then it's a robot that did it too, which is deep. I love that. Yeah. And watch the damn movie. And then, spoiler alert, so when Miles Dyson dies and he's holding that heavy weight over the trigger to the bombs, like, every last ounce of life he has, he's like, alright, yeah, a bunch of stupid cops, you just shot me, but I don't want to kill you. I don't know how much longer I can hold this thing. Get the hell out. And, like, his last breath, he is still straining to hold up that weight. And he doesn't drop it until he dies, giving them time to escape and live. Wild.
What a fucking hero.
So, that brings up the question, does everyone in a game like this just play the Miles Dyson?
You can't have everybody.
Of Miles Dysons?
Well, the hacker or the computer scientist, I guess, is a great character archetype for these games. I love that. You can't have everybody computer scientists, though. That's boring.
Yeah, but I think it's more so of the morality of Miles. The human goodness of him. There's got to be an asshole in there. There's got to be someone there who's going to say, I want to shoot him in the arm.
Well, what are some other character archetypes that are good to play in Terminator and AI Uprising games?
What about Laura's trader, who would trade away the humanity to get resources from the robots and turn on people?
Yeah, basically to a turncoat who supports the robots.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one, actually. You could call him a robot fucker if you want. You could call him a traitor. But that is an interesting archetype of, like, a character that either worked heavily on the project and is, like, the kind of an antithesis of the Miles Dyson. Like, I can't give up my life's work, you know. Or
wait, you're telling me that I create a fucking evil, like, robot army? I'm all about that. Let me in there. I'll keep helping my kids.
Or someone that maybe, like, doesn't have enough connections in the human world to, like, care, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's interesting. I mean, obviously, I think the badass character, you need your Sarah Connor, you need your, like, older John Connor.
Yeah, you're like just your freedom, your standard, like, freedom fighting, anti-robot militia member, like, human to the core, like, badass, loyal, definitely would not trust a friendly robot.
And because that's also, I think, where you have room for character growth and development, is if you have a robot character that's maybe been reprogrammed, or, like, if you want to get into some Blade Runner shit or something, where, like, maybe they've, like, developed their own self-identity and have chosen to fight against the robot, like, you're definitely, whether it's a player character or an NPC, that freedom fighter character is going to have a lot of conflict coming to terms with, if they even do, fighting alongside this thing. And that's, I think, something that Terminator does sort of delves into a little bit in T2. Sarah definitely doesn't trust Uncle Bob. I think that's actually, we were speaking about tropes. I think that's an interesting trope too. Is like, can you trust the friendly robot? You've been fighting robots your whole life, Sarah.
Yeah. I also really like the trope of a boy and his robot / a boy and his dog. The relationship between young John Connor and Arnold is really well done, and I'd be very interested to see that translated into a game.
See, I kind of see the Dr. Dyson as the computer programmer, but John is definitely the hacker of the group.
Oh, you're right.
Because he's the one who is able to bypass security and stuff like that, using his technical know-how and his gadgets.
Yeah.
I had forgotten that he was a little hacker. That's cool. That's neat. What about playing a robot?
I would love to play a robot. Like, I don't like zombies. Zombies terrify me. I have nightmares about them constantly. But I love to play the zombie. It gives me control over my fear. And if I was playing a T game, I would ask to play a robot. Because I feel like you have a lot of room to explore growth. I love tropes of robots learning human emotion. I think it's really fascinating. And it's really fun to discover things.
It's hard to balance the characters, though.
That's true.
You've got somebody who doesn't feel pain, doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear.
I think the way to do that would be have them be an infiltrator type. Have them be a robot that, and maybe I'm thinking something, I don't know why I'm thinking Matrix. I don't think this is in the Matrix. But a, robot designed to infiltrate the human group, and so in order to do that, the machine ditches some of the, more noticeable features of, certain lines, the exoskeleton, and, doesn't feel pain and stuff, to, has pain receptors, has a limited lifespan. So in a way, you're, playing a robot, but mechanically you're still playing a human being. You can die.
Yeah, that would make it interesting. And it, obviously, we've talked about the politics of betraying the party before on different episodes, but you've got, does your sleeper agent code word set you off? Have you overcome that element of your programming? Can the party truly trust you? I had a player in one of my Star Wars games play a droideka. It was interesting. It worked all right. But if you are going to play either a, looks, feels, and fucks like a human robot, or if you're going to play a clanking metal, whirring gadget, either way, you as the player need to be aware of your programming. I'm air quoting. You need to be aware of your limitations, of the way you think and operate. And I think that even though it would be super OP to have a T-800 walking around, the limitations of the T-800 are in, some complex problem solving, maybe, certainly ability to interface with party members. It would have, a charisma of 2, or a demeanor of 1 or less, if that's possible.
Hasta la vista, baby. You need a medic. I don't know if Terminator doesn't super handle this stuff well, because, it's sort of inferred that all the combat characters have medical training.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that there's a lot. I think that a doctor or a medic character in this Robot Rebellion would be in a very interesting philosophical position, if nothing else. Mm-hmm. Someone that's supposed to cure and protect humanity has largely failed and has, just the remnants left. And I think there's a lot, character-wise, to work with there. I don't think it's something, though, that just screams out when you think about Terminator.
Yeah. And in the first one, Kyle Reese really was the demolitions guy. He was the guy making bombs and stuff like that.
That's a good point.
The guy who was able to, he make bombs, steal cars, even though that's something they're showing that the Terminators can do, but computer can be programmed to do pretty much anything. Like, those were his skill sets in the first one.
Because he was sent back to stop the Terminator from killing Sarah Connor. Was he sent back to destroy anything, or just stop the Terminator?
Just to stop the Terminator, but they had to send somebody back who had the ability to make the weapons that could end it, that could stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's one of the things that he said in the movie is, like, Sarah Connor asked him, "Can you stop?" And he says, "With these guns, no."
So I feel like we've talked about characters pretty thoroughly. I think we have, like, the only other thing I'll say on it is I think it's very militaristic. So, like, think about a military squad. You're going to need some of those archetypes in there to fulfill various roles.
Somebody good at range, somebody who's good with a shotgun,
Yeah.
get up close. You don't want to melee these things.
Yeah, you don't want to be knife fighting a robot. I feel like that's the bad thing. Now, the question is, do you include time travel in your Terminator game?
I think it would be extremely complicated, but I think it could be a lot of fun to have, or either campaign-based time jumping, or small jumps, because the entire plot of Terminator is completely based off of going back in time and trying to change fate. I think it's a crucial part of Terminator 2 to have the goals of writing your own existence. But time travel gets really messy. It's really hard to keep track of continuity. I think it's worth the risk.
If we stick with the time travel as seen in the first 2 Terminator movies, it's a one-way trip, it's a one-time jump, you have one shot, one opportunity. And in general, the fun of that in a game is the idea of playing in a different time. If you're going to have time travel in your game, and it's a one-time deal, you are sent back in time to do X. You can't come back. Some of the fun there is in changing a timeline, yes, and that can get very complicated. But I think most of that fun in an RPG is, oh, cool, we're in 1950 now. Oh, cool, we're in 2250 now. And you can get a lot of mileage out of that. You can get a lot of mileage out of your players knowing things that no one else knows, being called crazy, investing in eBay,
investing in technology in order to defeat technology.
Investing in eBay. Like, what are you doing when you go back in time, Kyle? Well, I'm gonna get some stock in eBay.
Oh, come on. We're never gonna have, like, Skynet coming out of eBay. Like, I'm here. I want your knickknacks, your collectibles.
See, everybody thinks it's Amazon and Alexa, but it's fucking eBay. It's the dark horse. No one saw it coming. That's why, fucking the donor is in his basement coding right now.
Well, anyway, I think that's a lot of the fun of a one-way trip time travel game. If you're going to do more complex time travel and have your artificial intelligence game with frequent time travel, then I think some of the fun there would be in, all right, you've gone back to 1984, you've done your mission, you now jump to 1994, and let's see what the future looks like. And then you do shit in 94, and then you jump again. The old,
I think it could be interesting having, a dueling match, where, you find out the AI is sending someone to 84, so you have to jump to 84. You stop him. You jump back to 2029. John Connor, or whoever your insert is just like, bad news, there's one in 98 going after this resistance leader, and you're just like, on it, boss. Whoop! And so I think you're right. I think if you want to use a variety of different settings and characters and have that seems like a little bit more of a not lighthearted game, but definitely more of a jaunt.
Yeah.
You're jumping around, trying to track Terminators, and that's a little different from the one-way trip or no time travel at all, which I think are a little more serious.
Something I think would be interesting, and y'all can call me out because I've only seen the second Terminator, and I'm not entirely sure the extent of the technology. I think it could be really fun to do a T-game based on trying to obtain that time travel technology, or specifically, let's say, you are all Terminators, you've finished your mission, and you want to go home. Figure out how to do it. How do you get time travel technology? How do you build it? Who do you go to? What do you have to do? I think that could be really interesting.
I kind of feel like that is an entirely different genre that you are playing there if you've got multiple time jumps. In Terminator, it is one way. The only thing that can pass through is living matter. If it's anything besides that, then I feel like it's kind of getting into a different genre of game that you're playing.
You all arrive naked. I love it.
Well, if we exclude for the rest of this episode the challenge of running a time travel-centric game, though I don't think you should, or I think it's cool to have a little bit of time travel in your Terminator game, and I like the one-way trip. But you can do it however you want. I also like games where you might jump around time. I think it is a different experience.
Yeah.
But excluding that challenge, what are some other challenges of playing a Terminator specifically, or artificial intelligence uprising kind of game that you guys can think of?
The sheer overpowering nature of technology. How do you not immediately quash your players?
What's the limitation of the AI that keeps it from just being able to send out one drone for every single person and just deal with it that way?
Mm-hmm. Obviously, in the first two movies, the Terminator, the T-800 and the T-1000 are exceedingly difficult for humans to kill. Extremely difficult.
Even with weapons of their own time, it takes a lot of firepower to take one down.
If you're dealing with you, the DM, controlling a, like, say, near-future robot uprising, we have so much automation now. Many, many things are plugged into the cloud and whatnot. But you are still limited by manufacturing, and you have to think about logistics, cross-country shipping, like getting your robots to their goal. A party, especially one that has like a trained pilot in it, like you can go across country, no problem. It's super useful. Always have a pilot. Always have a pilot.
That's the archetype we were forgetting. Yeah.
Yeah. But your robots, they have to find an automated aircraft, which not that difficult these days. They have to locate the party who has most certainly thrown out their Wi-Fi connected GPS units and whatnot, and their cell phones. You have to think about logistics so much, and you can't just be like, all right, every single thing, this isn't, Maximum Overdrive. This isn't, all right, every single vehicle is now in control by me, the DM, the weird aliens? I forget the
It was a Stephen King thing,
yeah,
right?
It wasn't explained.
Yeah.
What was doing it.
Some weird lights in space make all the vehicles come to life.
I forgot about that.
That was directed by Stephen King.
Yeah.
It's a wild movie if you haven't seen that one, too.
But it was
but yeah, you gotta think, how do I get my units? Like, it's like an RTS at that point.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest struggle for both you, the player, and the GM is, as the GM, you're now nearly unlimited. More so than you would be normally. In a fantasy game, right, you're limited with context of that universe, but also in that, like, magic aside, right, like, how many city guards do you have? 4, Like, if you're playing in a near future or even distant future with, like, all this bullshit tech, like, I think you have to remember sometimes you have to give the openings to the players, or hope that the players will be able to outthink you. Like you were talking about, like, players already outsmart me, and like we said, and I'll stick with this now, that's a good thing in this case, because you need them for them to succeed. Yeah. Because your deck is so much more loaded than theirs in this scenario, in this setting.
Would an AI retreat? If you send 100 units at 1,000 humans, and the humans manage to get the upper hand, and now you have 50 robot units, and now you have 30. Do you just fight it out until they're all gone? Or do you think, would your machine think, it would be better to retreat and repair time to go? Like, think about stuff like that.
Yeah, because you don't want to be in a scenario where it's just like, I think manufacturing is probably the most important thing you need to consider for this setting.
Yeah.
Because if you have a vague idea, there's nothing to stop you from having your AI rationalize something along the lines of like, well, those humans take 9 months to create a new human, and then 18 years for them to be able to become a fighting force. In 1 week, I can make 20 new robots. I'm just going to have this 100 fight and kill as many of them as possible, because I can make my own troops faster than humans can.
That's a fair point.
The AI is effectively zerging them.
Literally, yeah.
Something else to consider, perchance, is hackability. What's stopping you from, I'm in, hacking all the robots to turn them to your side, collecting your own little robot army.
Yeah, I feel like trying to hack an entire army of robots, that should be like the end campaign goal. Like that's how you get the resources that you're going to be able to actually finally put the nail in the coffin of the AI. That's how you're going to put an end to it, rather than just being an ability that, okay, my character in this combat can take over one robot, because then you're just incentivizing players to go out, okay, let's get in another fight so we can get one more, and then one more, and then one more, and then eventually you're creating your own force faster than what you can repopulate humanity.
Before we wrap this up, do we want to mention how we ended your AI Uprising campaign, or let people listen to that?
Go listen to the actual play, y'all.
Well, I would encourage everyone to listen to it, but I know that not everybody can sit and listen to actual plays, me being one of them. I ended the campaign with the AI being, well, the goal of the AI was to either capture or kill the player characters, because they had knowledge that the AI needed or wanted to prevent from falling into enemy hands. And so the way the player characters ended up defeating the AI at the point of saving themselves was they literally faked their own deaths to the satisfaction of the AI. And the thing that I loved most about that plan, that was not at all my idea as the game master, was entirely created by the players, is that it gave the perfect opportunity for me to go back to that campaign later and for you guys to play either in that same setting as different characters, or even go back and play the same characters later. That's what I love most about the ending of that game.
Yeah, we didn't defeat the AI. We just had them list us in their databases as dead, and they stopped hunting us specifically. It's pretty cool. I like that ending a lot.
Let's go ahead and just go on to geek things. We're starting to get kind of...
Do we not want to talk about what system we'd run it in?
We're starting to get kind of long.
Gotcha.
So, my geek thing, one of them is that, a few months ago, I said as my geek thing, the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition Kickstarter. Well, they've been releasing the PDFs of those as they come out. And just in February, they released the World Builder and Game Master Guide. And I have to say, this is probably one of the best books I've read about from the perspective of a game master in a long time. Particularly, there are 2 chapters in it that I would recommend any game master read. And that is Building Your Tribe, how to actually attract and build a gaming group, is included in the Game Master rules for this game. And there's another chapter in there called Savage Worlds for All Ages, and that breaks down how to run the game for different age demographics, which is something else I've never seen in a role-playing game group, is the difference between in the ways that different age groups play the games.
I only got 2 things. On the movie front, I recently rewatched, again, the most recent Halloween remake. Great movie. Watch it if you like. Like, Halloween is my favorite slasher franchise, and I'm not a big fan of the Rob Zombie stuff, but, like, this is a pretty good continuation of the first film. A lot of fun. Second, and actually on the D&D front, Wizards just put out the 5th edition version of the Artificer class from 4E, and it's updated. It's all out there. You can download the class supplement for free on their website.
Cool.
So that's pretty cool.
The full class?
It looks like it. I haven't gone through the whole thing yet, but the PDF's like 20 pages.
Okay.
Or not 20, hang on. I think like 10.
My geek thing is The Umbrella Academy, now on Netflix. It's a Dark Horse comic that was adapted to be I think it's 8-part series, and they just got renewed for season 2. It is a really good adaptation. It kind of doesn't go to the full extent of weirdness, and the series actually focuses on volume 2 of the comic rather than the first volume, but it is done masterfully. The writing in it, I think, is really great. The music choices are wonderful. The Ellen Page is just incredible. It makes me think about how great X-Men could have been, the original movies trilogy, if they had really gone full throttle. I just can't recommend it enough. It's a really good comic book adaptation.
I don't really have any geek things going on. Been really busy with work, but I do have a fun little food for thought. Check out the 2003 theft of a 727 airliner in Angola. It was a former American Airlines plane that I think had been sold to another operator after it had been retired from the American Airlines fleet. And a pilot and a couple of mechanics, and the pilot's wife believes the pilot was coerced into doing this, fueled the aircraft up, and stole it, and no trace of it has ever been seen again. Kind of wacky.
Well, guys, what do you say we stop this bullshit and start rolling some dice?
Dun, 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 dun,
I was about to do that.
Dun, 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 dun.
This has been a production of Alien Familiar Media. You can find past episodes and more at alienfamiliar.com. You can email us at alienfamiliarmedia@gmail.com. This production is protected under a Creative Commons non-commercial attribution, no derivatives license. Music for this episode is Suburban Outlaw by Forget the Whale and can be found at freemusicarchive.org.